Welcome to First Unitarian Society of Minneapolis, the birthplace of congregational humanism. We carry on that tradition of free thought today, dedicated to promoting a free search for truth, meaning, and justice. Our web address is firstunitarian.org. Thank you for joining us.
Okay, so let's just rip off the Band-Aid and get it over with. Let's face the fact that there is way too much pain in the day, in every day, to want to listen. So while we'd maybe rather go back to bed and put our heads under the covers, I invite you to lay down those pains now, to name what the pain of the day is for you. Really name it. Call it out, put it in the chat. I'll repeat it into the mic for the benefit of those online. What is hurting now? The election. War and killing. Gaza. Bloods? Destruction. Hurricane. Disinformation. Sudan. Homelessness. Denial. Global warming. Oh, man. It hurts, doesn't it? There's so much. Sorry I didn't hear all of those. I know others around you heard them and are holding them with you. There's all this and so much more. So let's just sit for a moment and practice holding it, listening to that pain, knowing it's not all out there. It's also right here in this room, in your lives. Let's listen to it for a moment. In the wisdom moment today, you heard about the power of listening without trying to fix it or placate. The importance of simply being empathetic by being present to another's pain. This is really difficult. Even after all these years of ministry, I have to bite my lip and sit on my hands as someone shares their pain with me. Because what I want to do is say, well, at least. Or I want to kiss it and make it better, just to try to minimize the hurt and then have it over with, which of course I can't. I can only listen, but it's so hard to just sit with the pain, and yet connection is the one thing that will help. And then in the reading Jane shared, you heard about doing something in the face of pain, having hope, taking action, taking the next step, one foot in front of the other, moving forward even when that seems impossible or like it won't matter a lick. So which is it? Listening? Being present? Or doing something? Anything? What are we to do when there is so much pain all around us and within us? And in the midst of all this chaos and pain, we know that we tend to look for simple answers and to look away rather than staying in it. I believe that the universe is this complex series of interconnected patterns, microcosms within macrocosms and macrocosms made up of microcosms, and that what can be seen operating in the smallest unit of existence is reflected in the expansiveness of the galaxy, and vice versa. That the way in which we listen to one another and express empathy will repeat itself over and over again in larger and more expansive ways. Which for me means that what I can learn in a one-on-one interaction with another human being is something that can be applied in our families and in our communities and in our nation and in our world. And what we see happening in the world in turn affects our small, sometimes insular lives. It's like this set of nesting dolls that depend on one another for their becoming. We as individuals are microcosms that are impacted by the larger systems that we're part of. And we, in turn, have an impact on those systems and hence on the world around us, whether we know it or not, whether we act out of that knowledge or not. And if that's the case, then theoretically we can really make a difference in the world, make it a better place, simply by trying to do the right thing as we see it. Doing what we can for the person or the situation right in front of us has that kind of ripple effect on all that is. And this is one of the bedrock understandings of humanism, right? That every time we respond to violence and anger with kindness and love, we make a positive impact in the world and on her inhabitants. And every time we stop to be present to the moment and to hold the pain that's present, the greater the connection we make with all that surrounds us. And the more of us out there who are aware of this and live accordingly and continue to make deep connections, the bigger the impact can be. Thich Nhat Hanh tells us that when we listen deeply, we help people to suffer less. When we pause, when we breathe deeply, when we unclench our jaw, maybe get a glass of water, that just gives us that moment to think about it all more clearly and maybe get curious. We perhaps see things differently and see a way to take the next step, one foot in front of the other. In those moments, we can ask if our usual way of acting is the best way to respond, or if maybe there's a different way, a better way. Within communities of practice, there is, as many of you are likely aware, a model for this. It's set up kind of like a recycling symbol with the three parts being plan and choose, act, reflect. Now, one can enter that cycle at any point. The practice is to be sure to do all three repeatedly. For today's purpose and listening to the pain of the day, we're kind of entering that process at the point of reflection, the place where we're holding the pain, noticing the impact, being with those who are struggling. This is as important piece of the practice as is planning, as is action. Each part is necessary because without that listening, without reflection, we're not prepared to plan or to choose where we hope to have an impact. And without that planning, we cannot act effectively. And acting is not the end product either. Rather, it's out of those experiences that we must then return to the place of reflecting and listening. To join Ruby Sales, the activist who has a practice of saying, where does it hurt? Where does it hurt? So, deep listening is crucial to knowing what to do next. Listening is part of taking action. Taking action effectively depends on us listening to where it hurts. And still, it's just so hard to be with the pain. There's a German concept. You'll like this, Paul. Your face went up. There's a German concept that might shed a little light. It's called Weltschmerz. I think I've got that approximately right. Literally, it means world pain or world weariness. It's a feeling of discontent or pessimism in the face of knowing that things could be different. Are you feeling Weltschmerz? I sure am. I wish things were different. Given all that's going on now, you might think this is a new word, but it was coined about 200 years ago. In other words, it could just be that what we feel when the world does not live up to our expectations or all the possibility that it has, the way we feel then is simply part of the human experience. We have been here before. Humans throughout time have been here before. So you'd think we'd be better at processing this pain, right? The human experience is so long and so rich, and yet human evolution is painfully slow. So what if we simply chose to embrace our shortcomings as pain managers and healers as one of our growing edges, one of the things that pulls us toward a better world, a kinder humanity, more authentic connections. Because if we don't feel the pain, if we numb ourselves and turn away, that just leads to resignation and inaction. And believe me, that's worse than feeling our feels. Even Weltschmerz. It is, in fact, exactly our ability to be hurt and angered by the world that prompts us into action and making change. I want to throw in yet another layer, another concept that could be helpful. Authors John Alexander and Arian Conrad, in their book Citizens: Why the Key to Fixing Everything is All About Us, why the key to fixing everything is all of us, argue that our societies need a new narrative, and that starts by ditching the stories sold to us by authoritarianism and consumerism. Now, Alexander is co-founder of the New Citizen Project, which works from the understanding that following the pandemic, society is at a crucible where it could go three ways. We could return to being subjects, re-embrace our role as consumers, or enter the era of the citizen. And here's what that means. They say that for centuries, up until the 20th century, perhaps for survival, most of us knew that the right thing to do was to keep our heads down, do our duty, and be content with our lot. But that story pretty much collapsed after World War II when we became consumers, when we learned to look out for ourselves, to find the best deal regardless of its impact on others or the planet, and to produce whatever we could sell. Entering the 21st century, Alexander and Conrad suggested that we're shifting to the possibility of becoming citizens, when especially because of financial crises and the climate emergency, we're seeing the possibility of choosing to be people who want to get involved, who step into our own power in order to shape the world we want to see, and to do this for the common good. Now, obviously, this shift hasn't happened yet, nor can it be taken for granted. There's no guarantee that the citizen story will prevail. And this is the crucible we find ourselves in. All three of these things, being subjects or consumers or citizens, are available to us, and only one will emerge as dominant. And of course, that consumer story is really familiar to us. It's how our culture has functioned for most of our lifetimes. It's the back to normal that everyone craved post-pandemic. Within that story, as consumers, we can pretend that nothing has happened, that everything's okay, as long as we have our coffee and our SUVs, life is good. But living in this way is to lose even more time in the fight for climate justice and equality. And I think you also know that we're seeing the subject story making a comeback, and this is an even worse direction. Appalling levels of inequality, reduced civil rights, surveillance programs, and tracking. This is the story of fascism and tyranny, where someone else is in charge of everything, and all we need to do is put our heads in the sand and renounce any responsibility for others and for the planet. And Alexander and Conrad tell us that both of these scenarios, subject and consumer, are seductive, in part because they're familiar, but that they simply don't or can't work if we expect to survive together. So the good news? Well, the good news is that there's this huge opportunity to instead embrace the citizen story, to claim our agency, to find purpose, to self-organize and find ways to offer mutual support, to partner rather than to compete. But this story is kind of unfamiliar, and it's going to take a lot of imagination and hard work that begin with deep listening to the pain of the world. And as we listen, we can ask some questions. There's so many questions, but questions like, how can we find ways to build agency in our own lives, even through small actions? Where can you find ways to connect to the place where you are and to the people you're with? How can you better understand where power lies and how that power is being used? What is yours to do in the world? What is yours to do within your relationships? What is yours to do within yourself? You know, we can't do it all, nor should we try. Listening to all the pain of the day, the pain of the world is so overwhelming, it's just too big. And we do well to listen to Tolstoy, whose answer to what is the most important is the one you're with. Who is the most important one is the one you're with. That the most important task is the one right in front of you. And the most important time is now. As one of our 19th century Unitarian ancestors, Edward Everett Hale, said, "I am only one, but still I am one. I cannot do everything, but still I can do something. And because I cannot do everything, I will not refuse to do the something that I can do." Surely, we all can begin with listening. The story is told of a child who was late getting home one day. When they finally showed up, their worried mother said, "Where have you been?" The child explained, "I stopped to help a friend whose bicycle had broken down." "But you don't know how to fix a bicycle," his mother said. "It's true," replied the child, "but I stopped to be with him while he cried." You know, perhaps one day that child will learn to fix a bicycle, but for now, they simply and wisely leaned into connection and listened. The children will listen. So might we all. May it be so.
Thanks for listening. You can find much more about humanism and what's happening at First Unitarian Society of Minneapolis by visiting our website at firstunitarian.org.